Fuck it.
I've got to say, Ryan, I've been really looking forward to our conversation. Like, we knew each other. I don't know how long ago it was. I've got so much respect for what you've done. I've been following along. I think it's really awesome, man.
I appreciate it, man. You've had such a significant role in my journey, man. Like it was a massive pivotal shift. And I remember I was sat there in a hostel trying to grow my coaching business part time as a bartender, sat in the hostel living room when we had our call, and you put me in so much tension, and you were just like, "Are you ready to cut the
Do you know,
bullshit,
honestly,
mate?"
like, don't take this the wrong way, Ryan. Like, obviously, I remember like the work, you've been around, but sometimes I'm like, who sold that person in? Like, was it
Yeah.
me? Was it someone else? I can't even remember when we first chatted whether I even had other people in, and I was like, I remember I had a client, what was his name? I remember it in a minute, and I was like, yeah, but I didn't even sell you in, and he's like, no, you did, and I was like, oh shit, that wasn't good because he'd been a client for like 2 years.
It was,
Look, man, I actually want to like we'll get to like the whole journey and that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'd just like to actually hear about a convo about what you're doing, what you're up to. I love the work you've been doing. I'm really curious about it. You just said there it's kind of pivoted. So what is it that you're doing?
So over the last 18 months, we've been building a brotherhood. And that started from my own lone wolf trap that I created myself being in the online space, right? I was a recruitment consultant wanting to be free, and I'd hustle and grind, quit my job, change country, just locked in, isolated myself, cut all my friends off, and just focused on building my business. And I eventually made it work. But then what happened then was I was lonely. And I didn't realize I was lonely until I had this kind of breakdown one day. I was with my missus. It was just like, if I just focus on my fitness, my
Current
finances,
missus.
yeah, my fiance, yeah, and I'll be good. And then she left one day, and I just broke down in tears. And I was like, what do I feel? And I was lonely for the first time in my life. Where I was aware of loneliness. And that led me into doing my first men's retreat. It's only camping with the boys, with these guys. I didn't realize how much I needed men. I didn't realize how much of a boy's boy I was, because I always played sport growing up. I just didn't have guys that aligned with the success and ambitions and values that I had become as the man I am now. Fast forward a year later, met up with the same guys, and we just had coffee on a Saturday morning, 8 a.m., six of us, and started a group chat called Bali Brotherhood. And we just kept showing up every Saturday. And then more people would join. Then there was 10. Then there was 12. Then there was 20. Then there was 36. Then we got a new venue. And all of a sudden there's 40 guys in the room. And it just kept showing up and kept showing up. And I knew in my heart, because purpose has been a big thing for me, right? Even the work that you do with the guys and help me with around really connected to my values and DeMartini's work, I knew in my body, I was like, wow, this is what I'm meant to be doing, because there was no resistance. It was Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Have to sacrifice a lot for that with my relationship and all these things. But it was just so easy for me to be there. And I knew in my heart it was going to be something. And it took 18 months of just relentlessly showing up, making sure I was there every Saturday with my partner, Matt, with faith of like, it's going to become something. It's going to become something. And 18 months later, there's 800 men in the group. We've had hundreds of men from all over the world sit in circle with us. 30 to 60 guys show up every single week. We don't do any marketing. It's all word of mouth. And I have seen the raw, messy, vulnerable, authentic expression of so many men from so many different walks of life now, that it shows me that we all are the same. All of us men with hunger and ambition, we're the same. And isolation, loneliness is one of the core problems that we all face. But it's a trap that we create ourselves of, this self-reliance of, I just need to lock in. I just need to just focus and be productive. And it took a long time to really understand that and figure that out. And then very recently, I didn't want to ruin the essence of what it was. It was like, is it a men's mental health organization? Is it a men's community? Is it men's work? And we decided to launch a club. 90% of the guys in there are business owners. Being in the arena of business comes with its challenges and its different pressures. And I love the game of entrepreneurship. And that's why it was really aligned of like, cool, we've got the brotherhood here, which is the emotional stuff for the guys, the connection, the authentic connection and collaboration, doing the emotional check-in to make sure that we have a space to process without shame or judgment. But now let's apply that to how you're showing up on your mission, how you're showing up for the men around you, your family, your business, your leadership, and how all of these problems, and one of the things we say is around like, there is no such thing as a business problem, it's personal problems showing up in your business.
Yeah, for sure.
And all of the investments and the containers that I've been on have either been one or the two. So you've been super focused on inner work or super focused on mastermind and strategy. And we're trying to bridge the gap. And we've just launched, got 30 guys in there at the minute. And it really is the highest expression of what we're trying to achieve. And the guys are getting amazing experience because it's just different. And
How are you feeling along this 18 months? Like, I've been really curious, like, it's the kind of obviously overnight success, and I know that this hasn't been an overnight success. Like, how are you feeling along as this grows? It is, I guess, growing in front of you.
I have had a deep level of frustration because
That's surprising.
I knew that it was going to be the thing, but I couldn't figure it out. And it just required me to have so much faith and just keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up and trusting that the answers would come, right? It's like action precedes clarity. We have the path illuminates as we walk it. And it was a constant battle of showing up. However, my life has been completely different ever since.
How come frustration?
Because I felt like I had a split personality for a long 18 months. I felt like I was the business coach, the coaches over here, knowing that this was the long-term vision, but unable to integrate that fully and feeling this constant pull of who I was there on a Saturday morning. I was in my element. I was in purpose. I was expressing myself authentically. I felt so powerful doing that. And I go back to speaking about content and DM setting on a Monday with my content and being like, I don't want to do this. And it took a long time for me to unpack and let go of that mask I had to wear as the business coach to allow this version of me to be born. And a big part of that was when I stepped on stage at a conscious leadership event in Bali.
Yeah,
and I spoke on stage.
Yeah.
I knew my life was going to be different after I got back off there. And I realized that I wasn't on there for being a business coach. The reflection from the world and the universe was not, hey, Ryan, you're a great business coach. It was, you're leading men. You're building a community of men. And that was probably the significant turning point of full integration of, I need to figure this out now because this is the future of what I'm trying to do. And my zone of genius. And just really embodying that zone of genius, not just what I'm good at.
That. What is that then? That's interesting.
So, do you know Roger Hamilton and wealth dynamics?
I don't, but go on.
So he comes to Bali. He was at the event and he had a beautiful talk. And he spoke on such a deep level at his talk on day 3 of this event. I was in floods of tears. And it was all around your responsibility to live purposefully, make your impact. And he articulated what I understood on such a deep level. And I was just in floods of tears. And I decided to commit to getting closer to him. And his mechanism is called Wealth Dynamics. It's a business development tool for entrepreneurs to understand their natural frequency and flow. And it encompasses 4 core geniuses. And it's built off the I Ching. So it's all around Carl Jung's work, the I Ching, the Book of Changes. It's all around ancient wisdom applied to business and how there's 4 genius types. One is people smart. One is ideas and innovation. One is like details. And the other one is timing. And it's based on where your brain type, where your most of your focus in your brain type. And mine's people and ideas. So I'm big picture. Bah, 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 bah. Like I would be excited by people all day, connecting people. But I had so much shame about my KPI tracker.
Do you know what? I was chatting to Jack. I know you know Jack as well.
Yeah.
He was talking about things like this. I was just cracking up when he was saying it.
I was like, oh my God, what if someone knows my KPI tracker? I must be a bad business owner. And I was like, oh my God, this whole time I've been trying to be someone that the world has told me to be in this echo chamber of this coaching industry, saying this worked for me, so this will work for you. This is what you've got to do. And I had so much resistance and struggle with that one single thing that I liberated myself. I'm like, oh, I just need to do what I'm good at. And that made so much sense to me, like how I show up in the Brotherhood, where I'm with people and I'm inspiring them, speaking about ideas, letting my just passion shine through. And all of the reflections I had was just so amazing because I was in my zone of genius and I was like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense to me and liberated me from so much shame that I want to be able to gift this to men and gift this to people, because that is a totally different paradigm when we actually understand what our genius is. And that is the unlock of flow, of trust, of momentum, and your business model. Everything that you can build is based around you being in your zone of genius. And that's a big part of what we do now. I'm studying it. I've got a certification program coming up this weekend around how to use AI to find your genius and all of these things. So that's basically was a big part of that. And that's been a catalyst for me to basically what the vision and the offer is now around being the network and ideas guy within a network of business owners and supporting them as Ryan, not as a business coach. And the labels that I used to box myself into, now I can just show up as me and my genius without these constraints or labels that limited me on so many levels prior to that.
Tell me about like your business relationship. I'm always curious because I think I lucked out. Honestly, when people were in the program, like anything, when they start talking about like or hinting, like, oh, I should, maybe I'll get a business partner, and I'm just like my instantaneous sort of mind is like, yeah, don't, because most, I guess in a way it's personal relationships maybe as well. Like most personal relationships don't work. Most business relationships don't work, and they usually don't work earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I was saying this, and the obvious thing people would have been like, well, what are you talking about? You've had a good business relationship for like 6-7 years. And then in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't like, it was not judgment. It was just literally luck, I think. It was just luck. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not, maybe the universe, all that kind of stuff. But it was luck that we got into that situation. Like, I also, as I've been following along, I remember kind of some stuff I saw you do, and I don't know, it's not a criticism. I was like, I don't know. It was like, I really used to like your energetics, what you said. And then there was a period where I was like, yeah, this is terrible. What the hell? What's happening here? Like, where's this come from? This doesn't sound like, it's not even, I don't know you that well. It doesn't even sound like wine. It was more like, yeah, that's a bit, I don't know. It just didn't feel right. And then later on,
When was this? Like 9 months ago, 6-9 months ago?
No, it was a lot longer
Or was
than
it
that.
2-3 years ago? Like 2 years ago?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I see
So funny you say
start
that.
bowling again, and I'm like, this is good. And I'm always interested in like in partnerships. Like you say we, like, tell me about like how that happened, how you guys, that you two, I guess, that are running this,
Yeah.
how you work well together.
So I think it's such a fascinating thing, right? Because I think I had a couple of business partnerships. I partnered with my mentor. So when I was finally able to, quote unquote, break free, move to Bali, my coach at the time, my mentor at the time, I partnered with him. And we had a good start, and it just crumbled. And then one day I got kicked out of the business without any warning. I just got a text saying I've been removed from Wise. And it was at the point where we were like putting all of our money back in the business. So I had no personal cash. And that was just really wounded me on so many levels around, like, again, lone wolf, right? I can't trust anyone. I can only trust myself. And I think over time, where I've unpacked my own stuff and like looking through it the lens of gratitude and how I was being taught all these lessons, that was a big component part of me opening up to business partnerships again. And then I think a couple of other bad business partnerships that made so much sense once I understood my genius stuff. And this genius stuff is around partnerships and collaborations and teamwork, right? Because I think most don't work because we're trying to be the same person.
Yeah,
and there's not clear roles and responsibilities based on where we trust ourselves most. I don't need another Ryan, right? We're going to be fighting for the mic. We're going to be fighting for the spotlight. My profile type is called a star. It's kind of that's my profile type in between like people and ideas. And a good analogy for this is around the opposite. So Oprah Winfrey, she built her wealth very different to Warren Buffett, right? Oprah Winfrey, people, ideas, talk show. Warren Buffett, very few decisions, but buying other people's businesses, right? There's a contrast, a very dramatic contrast around how they built wealth, right? And that's based on their genius and how they get into flow. So now, every single partnership that we're doing now and what we're doing with my business partner now is based on how we naturally get into flow and where our natural roles are based on what the business needs. And it's still new, but we're finding so much synergy now because where we trust ourselves most is where we get into the most flow. So we have to engineer the partnership so we are in our trusted part of the business, right? Put me behind a financial tracker, I'm shit, right? Put me in a room with other guys facilitating a mastermind, I'm great. So it's around understanding what we need. So for me, in my world, I'm big picture thinking. So to have a 360-degree view of the problem, I need someone that's not me because all I see is the big picture. Right? I don't see the details. I don't see risk. I don't see timing. It all happens at once in my head. So it's like, okay, what do I need? I need someone that has a different perspective and a different way of looking at the same problem so I have a better solution to the problem. And all of the stuff that we're doing within the wealth dynamics now is around how do you build your team so that you holistically get what the business needs to run it as a system. And even like me and Ali, my business partner, we're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're also very different. And I think it's a very conscious conversation around.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll interject, Ryan. Like when you say it's conscious, I just think like this sound like, to be honest, you mentioned team as well. Like we were terrible at that. Like nothing. It wasn't our staff were terrible; they were good. We just like now looking back, I'm like, yeah, we didn't really know what the hell we were doing. Like we didn't. We employed people that we liked that were around us. I don't think we supported them in the right way. Like it was great, and because there was a bit of a COVID bump. Like it was hard not to make money, right? And then and there's some really awesome people that we had. But looking back now, we were like, well, we didn't even have a framework to like employ people. We were just like, yeah, you're good. Yeah, we like you, obviously. We know you're competent. And even like, I link that with like when you said it's like a conscious thought process. When me and Phil got started working together, it wasn't even like that. It was just like, all right, it's the only dude that I know that's in the gym or in London that like seems to actually have some sort of drive. Yeah. Right, fuck it, let's just do it. No, I think we wrote a book together, maybe first of all. So I'm really interested in this and like in actually like having a framework as well, because we had a team of 20 at one point, and it was really good fun. It was a great place to be, but I don't know if we were very good at it.
Well, I think when I spoke to Phil, he mentioned that he was like, Tim just loves sales. Like he just loves sales. I was like, right, okay, you want to take the sales calls all day? I was like, right, he loves, and he was like, I was better at operations. So it's like, I think we naturally can find our rhythm and flow, right, over time. It's like, if you are an entrepreneur, I think you're constantly iterating and solving problems anyway, right? It's just a DNA and it's just a language that we've allowed ourselves to integrate into the business. And Roger's built and sold his company on the stock exchange, and he's like one of the only mentors or like public listed CEOs that still does personal mentoring. I spent a lot of time with him and see how he thinks, and he's a futurist, but it's all based on ancient wisdom, and I love ancient wisdom, laws of the universe. It's like, that's my shit. I love that. And applying it to business problems, I'm like, fuck, that's sick. So I was like, it was like two worlds come together, but real application. And even the guys get it, right? Of like the patterns that we're in. So for me, it's really practical in the sense of like, this is what you're good at. This is what you're really shit at. All right, great. I know that. I'm self-aware enough to know, hey, bro, I'm really good at this, but do not put me in that role. And if you need me for this thing, I'm not your guy. I'm not that guy. And a lot of it's around like opportunity language of like, if you know your strength, you know your genius, you don't go to anyone in a place of weakness. It's like I can go to the market and create opportunities because I'm fucking amazing at this thing. And for every person in the marketplace, they need complementary opposites, right? It's like for every person with time who has no money, there is someone with money but no time, right? And everyone that's really good, like visionary, there's someone that hates the idea of creating content and being the personal brand. I will love spreadsheets. I'm like, I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting there doing spreadsheets all day. But some people are introverted and they love it and they get all jacked up from seeing how beautiful spreadsheets come together. But most of the time we don't spend our time with those people because like attracts like.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
If you go to an accountant, if you go to an accountant's or you go in a corporate company and you look at the sales floor versus the accounting room, they're very different types of human beings, right? And then they naturally find themselves in those roles. But competency is a different thing, right? Competency isn't your natural flow of genius. Sometimes we're conditioned to be competent at things based on the roles that we've had in life, right?
Sometimes I wonder, like, is it a useful situation? And even if you're speaking, I'm like, is it a useful situation just to get into business with people that are just like your mates or people that you like? And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, maybe that's actually the wrong way of doing it. Like, because I think you attract other people that are like you. And it's like, maybe it's actually just better getting in a business of someone that, not that you don't like, but that you maybe wouldn't have another personal relationship as well. And I like, you know, I think one of the reasons we obviously mates, obviously I'm going to take it away from that, but I did feel like that we were very different. And
Yeah,
that was
100%.
a really good thing. And we worked really hard on it. Like there was times when like we actually had to sit down and say, look, it was almost like, you probably do a lot of work with, you know, the missus as well. Like we were like, we need to work on our relationship together. We need to learn to understand each other a little bit more, understand each other's flaws and be okay with that. And, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And at first it was sometimes a little bit of needle and stuff like that. And like, you know, there was a little bit of frustration between us two, I suspect. Like certainly, you know, I could sometimes see there was, because I don't think that the way he worked, he didn't quite understand how my brain works, and I'd get a little bit annoyed with him. But then, like, we had open conversations, and it just created a really good relationship. And it was like, and I think there was a bit where it's like, I can't expect this person to do what I do. Like if I'm doing something and I'm having a conversation and it's not I can't remember, but like if I've got all these million things going on in my brain and I want to be in a zone of creating content or sales, I can't be sitting there thinking about like, I mean, I don't mind spreadsheets, but like if you want me to close, you know, 6 figures a month of sales in this business, don't be expecting me to fucking fill out spreadsheets after. Like someone fucking can do that instead. And I just think like we got there, but again, I think it was just luck more than anything else.
Yeah, I think, and it's such a fascinating thing, right? Because again, like this is partnerships work, partnerships don't, right? And again, it's all of interpersonal relationships, right? How do we actually work? And like, if I'm assuming that you see the world through the same eyes as me, then we're always going to face resistance, right? It's like no one sees the world that I see things. But if we are our own, how we're wired is different, right? Because then it's like the same ambition, shared values, shared goals, shared life ambitions can be exactly the same, right? But how we approach work and life and problem solving and where we get into flow and where we're naturally like we zone out and we're in and we get excited through that work can be very different based on who you are. But again, it's like I say, like I do the guys on the call, on the coaching call, and they're all the same. They're all my profile. I was like attracts like you've been attracted to me in my container because you see yourself in me because we are the same type of people, right? So that like does attract like in a lot of ways. But it's like you say, if we're both fighting for the same roles or roles and responsibilities aren't clear within a business, that's when it breaks down. And that was the whole breakdown of my relationships of like either my role, you're better at the same thing than me. So it was you took that role and then I was left on the sidelines like, what do I do now? That was like the first partnership. It was like, there's no role for you here because I do it. And it wasn't clear where I fit because we were both trying to be the main guy, right? I was like, you can't have two of those people in that situation without the awareness that we had. And another time I was like, cool, with the other partnership, I was like, I don't need what you have. Right? There's no strategic benefit because I'm really good at the thing that you are in the business for, and I'm limiting my own intuition and my own growth by delegating my genius to someone else. And then that didn't work either because I don't, that's not what I need. I need someone who's not me because now I can't even trust my own intuition and do the things that I get into flow with. So I think it's just a fascinating thing, but I really do believe that partnerships, JVs, and this is a big part of my mission now, is around like, because I've had terrible ones, but I deeply believe that they can work. And I believe that I've got one of, or part of a solution for that. And I deeply believe that, again, isolation and struggle and the way the world is going, I think the more men can understand how to understand themselves so they can go into relationships and partnerships and opportunities within business powerfully, with passion, with skill, with flow, with their genius. I think when they come into that space, it will accelerate their growth far beyond trying to do everything alone. But obviously there's a lot of resistance and friction to make that happen, and it has to be both people in the same situation. I'm reading Who Not How at the minute again, the book by Dan Sullivan. Have you read that?
No, but I don't know if it was you that shared it or someone else recently.
I
As soon
did.
as you said it, oh yeah, yeah, then no, I haven't. But
Yeah, and it's like we asking how I am confined to my own level of thinking and my own level of resource, and that can be my own nervous system. So how do I've got a great idea, how do I do that? Doesn't serve you because you might be too busy and it's like, I can't do that, right? On too whatever. But if you ask who can help me with that, you basically unlock the consciousness of every single other person, because a who might know a who, that you unlock the person, or the person who knows the person that can support you on making that happen. And there's a concept he uses around different types of people where they're at.
I'm curious as you're speaking. Like, have you always been self-aware? Do you think? Where do you think it came from? Like, I'm trying to think like how much interaction we had. I don't think we had loads, did we?
Well, I had a lot of interaction with you, right? Because I consumed a lot of your content, right? So I consumed tons and tons of your content. So from my relationship with you is very different to your relationship with me, right? Because I
Yeah,
consumed
it's
so much of you.
interesting. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I look back on that whole
Where do
experience
you
that we
think, like, how
done.
did you grow up? Like, do you think that looking back now, you were a bit more, and you wouldn't use the word conscious. Do you think you thought differently to other people? I'm
Well,
always
when I was
curious.
15, when I was 15, I was on the books of professional football and the books of professional cricket. So like I was on the books of Brighton Hove Albion as a goalkeeper, and I was a seam bowler for Sussex County Cricket Club. So like when I was 15, I was like, I'm fucking God's gift. I've got all the things I could ever
You
want.
fucking loved it, didn't you?
Yeah, and then it all fucking came crumbling down. And every time I've done inner work, I go back to that changing room in Prague when I got released, and I was in shock. And I was like, oh my God, my whole identity has collapsed underneath me. And it was every time I've had to revisit that, like such a significant part of
How
my
old was that?
ego, 15 years old. And I spent next 7, 8, 9 years just escaping and partying and traveling and running, and until I eventually had this like reality break of like being like 19 stone. I was like, oh my God, who
Wow.
the hell am I? But then that kicked off my weight loss journey. And then my
'Cause
coaching, I
what was
got a
the brand? I
coach,
really liked it. What was it? The
that
what
diet
was your,
geezer.
yeah, that I really liked that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was really cool. Like, and I remember saying it to you, and I think at one point you were like, "Oh, I'm putting that." And obviously, this is a long time ago, but you were like, "I'm putting that by the wayside."
Yeah.
I when I was, I can't remember exactly, my early 20s. My then missus, her nephew played for Ipswich, and I was there
Mm.
the first day that he got scouted. Now, I think that her parents did really well by him, but I also think that they were somewhat invested in this thing that might happen in the future potentially. Like, they
Mm.
were really calm, they were really, really good. but you could almost, even that moment, like they came over and was like, Ryan's been, his name was Ryan actually. He's like, he's been scouted or like whatever. And you could see that they were excited. And while they stayed grounded through this time, I think they invested a lot in it. And this guy, he was a good player, but he wasn't, I just don't think he had the hunger for some reason. I don't know what it was. And he stayed there at Ipswich till he was like 14 or 15. And then he got released. And we stopped sort of seeing each other. And I was like, I think he's going to really struggle at one point. I really do, because he had this whole, and I didn't quite know it like I know now. He had this whole identity in who he was. Like when he used to go and play football, like people would know who he is. They're like, they'd be talking about him and that, like, because he was one of the best players in the area. And I was like, I think it's going to really affect him at some point. Like, and it's strange to look back like 9 years later, how much, I don't think when things like that happen, I don't know if you think differently, like whether young lads even know how profound that might end up being.
100%. And like, there's so many layers to that. And I realized after the hours around, like, I was doing that to please my dad. And it was like this whole thing I built was because I wanted to get love from my dad. So I was like, I'll do the thing. I was like, right, football and cricket, two of your favourite sports, done it. Right. And like, I didn't want to be a footballer. I wanted to be a footballer so my dad would be proud of me.
Wow.
Right. And then that, our relationship cracked after that. And I spent a long time with a rough relationship. And I kind of look back now of like, oh, all of this like proving to the world of who I want to be and chasing and taking massive risks ultimately was because I was trying to seek approval through performance within football, and then it was in like partying. It was like anything I'd push it to the limits. Business coaching. Why was I a business coach? Because I was like trying to prove to my dad that I could do it. All of this shit. So like there's so like now, after the amount of work that I've done, man, I've done so much work. That was such a profound impact, and it was shock more than anything. I went to shock, and I was like, it's frozen in my, I can close my eyes and see it now. I've been in deep meditation about what it means, rejection. Even when we worked together, right? The reason why I didn't quote unquote get the results I was looking for was because I had a deep rooted unconscious fear of rejection, and I couldn't send DMs. I couldn't do outreach because I was so afraid of being rejected. And when I'd done it, I went straight back to being a fucking 15. I'm like, oh my God. This rejection that I felt in that moment was the number one blocker in my business. And when I unlocked that, I unlocked a new level in business because I realized that the resistance I had was I didn't want to experience that same level of rejection that happened when I was 15. I was like, what the fuck? That's mental.
How do you find that out? How do you realize that?
Well, it's funny because you introduced me to John DeMartini. Week 1, right? Values determination factor. Week 1 of the program. You got to do it yourself first, Ryan. I was like, all right, cool. What's this? Bang, totally different paradigm of reality. That sent me, that went, and I deep dove into his work. So I worked with a few people that worked with him, a guy called Jason Greystone, if you know Jason. He was like a wealth coach. And like from that point onwards, and like you introduced me to coaching, like really the art of coaching, like what, not online fucking giving people macros shit. No offense to the personal trainers. Actual coaching, actual behavior change, actual deep inner work. And that led into me doing coaching and life coaching and doing all these certifications and being a proper coach through my own experience and inner work. And then through that, one of my mentors had some amazing DeMartini work methodologies around what your fear is. And then you go back to your experiences and you look at how, okay, so I had like that experience of me being released from Brian. It was just a negative, all negatives, all drawbacks, no benefits of that. The failed footballer, my entity was a failed footballer, which is fucking stupid because I was 15 years old. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't even that old. So I had to go back and then rebalance it out by looking at all the benefits and stacking all those benefits around it. Would never found my purpose, become a coach, met my partner, moved to Australia, like all of these benefits. And it was such a significant point. And now that just rebalancing and neutralizing that fear just removed enough of a layer of my own resistance to then start sending outreach. right? So, and then there's layers to it. I had to do it again a few months later, and there's something else, and something else, and then something else, and then a new thing
And then
pops
in
up.
another year there'll be something more. I had this
100%.
conversation with someone yesterday, and sometimes I'm like, is this person just thinking I'm an idiot? Because they're like, no, I don't literally mean that, but they're like, the person wanted the answers to like, and by the way, this is really normal. It's not in any way a criticism of anyone, because like I've done this hundreds, and you know you would have as well. Like I've done this hundreds of times now. It's like, I know that you want to ask me this question, but we're trying to fix the problem at this level of consciousness, and we could just keep doing this. And I was saying this to the person, and I think I'm slightly better at knowing which level to go at. And once, did you get coached by Ali at all at any point? Was she coaching or was she in the program?
She coached someone live on one of the calls I was on, a group calls, and I just remember the other person broke down in tears in like fucking 5 minutes.
I mean,
And I was like,
genius level, like
yeah,
the best coach
yeah,
I've ever.
yeah.
It was like, I remember saying to Phil, I was like, and we're going off a bit of a tangent, so I'll make sure I'll come back because I'll forget what I was thinking. But and I remember speaking to Phil, I was like, I don't get it. Like I just, and he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't know how. Like without knowing, like bit by bit, sort of stumbled into this world, and like maybe like 7 years later, like I was a decent coach. And like, she's only been doing it for like 3 months. Like, I don't, how does she know this stuff?
Yeah,
Like, where's
it's like
it
my
come from?
missus. She's a
What's
witch,
that?
mate. It's like my missus, mate. They're just so intuitive. They just go zoop, straight there, just cut through all the bullshit, and just
And
that's it.
I was like, I don't even know. Like, and then I'd ask Ali, and I'd be like, how do you know that? She's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, how do you know that? And she's like, I don't know, I just do. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
almost like she acted like it was common sense. I was like, yeah, but it's not.
No,
And genius coach. But hopefully over time of just being a man and stumbling and getting a little bit better at that side of things, the intuition, and I'm like, this is the thing, I'm going to give you the answers to this problem because I know you need them, but it's just going to keep coming up if we don't figure out where does this really come from. And what's really interesting about coaching this person is that her language is very if I say fruitful in the sense of when you're coaching the person, because the words she uses are so sometimes out of place for the context that we're in. And when I point that back to her, I think she's sort of starting to realise I'm not just a weirdo, and
Yeah.
maybe realising, okay, now, and I can feel a bit of a shift. And it's like, she says something and it's like, just, and I'll bring it back to this. You remember you said that phrase, that seems out of context. And it seems like, and then I'm pointing it back, where did that first start? And we're having these conversations over week, and then we do get back to a little bit of depth, which, you know, some people love, some people don't. They just want to, Tim, just tell me how to fucking send a message. Like, what are you talking about? Just what do I say? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll give you that as well. And then we were having a conversation about like where she first got this, and I can't remember the phrase, what it was. It was quite a powerful phrase, totally out of place. And then she's like, oh, and then I think she's starting to realise it. And then I'm like, and I'm interested in your opinion. Do you think everyone has access to that? Do you think everyone has access to that level of understanding of themselves? Or do you think that it's a bit like IQ, where some people just have less and some people just have more?
I think it's a skill to develop. I think self-awareness is a skill to develop, but I do think it's a very innate drive to want to be self-aware.
Yeah.
I think you and I, with the path that we've chosen, we're naturally inclined to be reflective and want to learn. And I think it's tied to ambition in some ways as well, around like, okay, cool, I know that this requires me to become someone that I want to become. I'm doing it for a purpose. I'm not, there's a funny joke, like there's a place in Bali called Ubud, which is like an hour away. It's just like a healing hole of like, everyone up there is like meditating and doing all this healing work, but they're not fucking doing anything. It's like, if you want to find, you'll find problems. You will find problems. There's an endless well of problems that you can find if you want to go into that space, right? But healing for the sake of healing, or doing this work for the sake of doing the work, is not the point. It's to how do you move through the challenges you're facing through going inwards to then transcend that level. And I feel like a lot of people, I think that certain people on their path will reach a level where the personal development work doesn't work for them anymore. And they are forced to go to a different solution. And I think that's when like the surface level personal development habits, cold showers, all that stuff is like adding on to a problem. And I think that it gets to a point when they're required to go in if they have the call to do so. I think some people will just stay there because they haven't broken out of that paradigm of their own ego to say that, okay, I don't want to go there. That's not safe for me. And it's quite a discombobulating process, right? When you go into that work and you become, it's like opening a can of worms, right? It can be a very dysregulating and confusing period for you, for people, for me. And yeah, I think that I deeply believe we're all here to learn our own lessons, right? From a spiritual standpoint. I believe in fate. Amor fati from Stoicism is a big part of my life. It's a very big anchor for me, the love of fate. So it's like, how quickly can we come into lessons and wisdom of that happened, I can't change it, but I can learn from it, rather than looking back on, that shouldn't have happened, should. I think you told me that. Should is could with shame. I use that a lot.
Yeah. I might have sung off Valley.
I say that still. That's a really good one. Stop saying should. Who's told you that? Whose values are you speaking through right now? Because should is not your own, right? And I think that, I believe that we're here to learn our own lessons. I think whatever I'm going through is what I have to go through to become who I need to become. Whatever someone else is going through, I can support them on their lessons if they're open and willing to do the work, but I can't change them. They have to change themselves. And if that's the path, great. If that's not the path, that's cool as well. Empower to you for whatever you've got to do for your own journey, right? That's kind of my philosophy on it.
When you mentioned that Phil said I like sales, I say this to clients. I think I became better at sales first, which then made me a better coach. And as someone who was driven at that, not that I'm not now, but as someone that was driven by I want to make money. Like I signed up with a coach called Glenn, and a lot of people didn't have a great experience with him. I did. Like I probably overbought 1 year. Like I spent a lot of money, which I perhaps in hindsight probably should have thought through a little bit more. But you know what? The value I got out of that was that I was willing to spend that sort of money and back myself. And I was like, okay, it might sound stupid, but that was worth the money. Like,
sometimes that is it, though, isn't it? Like that is the lesson, right? Like,
for sure. Over time, like no doubt, like I definitely made the ROI on it. He was a very good coach, and I was wanting to buy a house in London. That was my goal, like, and sort of got a bit like gamified around it. And I was like, I think I went and saw a couple in, where would it have been? Some shithole in southeast London. It was like 350,000. I was like, oh my God. And then actually started making a bit of money, and I was like, whoa. And then we went and saw a real nice place in West Dulwich, and it was like 550. I was like, I want to buy that. And then so I gamified this whole thing, and that was my goal for that year, that 12 months. I was like, I want to go from not having any money to go and buy this house. And one of the things that I was good at is sales. And I was reasonably good quite quickly. And I kind of, like you, I do a lot of that work, and I'm like, I think that I worked out that I wasn't always good when I was young at understanding the consequences of my actions. And so I would do a lot of things that other people wouldn't do. Like I got in trouble a lot. I was arrested a lot. Luckily, like nothing ever was serious. And I was just a bit naughty, and there was other things that I was doing, and it was like, now looking back, I was like, dude, like my son would never do that. Like, no, like these are the consequences from doing stupid stuff. I just didn't seem to understand it in my head. And then I was like, is that why I was good at sales? Because I just didn't really always feel the consequences of, I don't know, asking for a lot of money. And it wasn't even the rejection on the call. It was, Glenn was like, right, sell this program for 15 grand. And I was like, I've only just sold them for 2. And he's like, just do it. And I was like, all right. And then I said it to someone, and I was like, oh, but I can say that it's cheaper if they pay in full. And he's like, no, here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell them that you get a day's coaching with you if they pay in full. And I was like, why would they want to coach with me for a day? What am I even going to do? Like, I don't know. And he's like, just do it. And I was like, okay. And then one of them went and got a bank loan. By the way, it was a really good experience for this guy. And I was like, and Glenn was like, told you so. And I was like, all right, this is good. And I think that I got more self-aware because I was driven by that money. I realized that I could get on a call and then an hour later have X amount of money in my bank account. And I wanted to be good at this. Like, I was like, I know that this, I don't know why I knew. I needed to learn the things to say, but what I really needed to learn is like emotional regulation and like, how can I show up on that call? I try and say this to my clients, like, how can I show up on these calls just empty, like non-reactive? It's a bit like dating stuff. Like, it's not just what you say, it's what you say and then how you receive the reply. And if you say something that's quite strong, for instance, and, you know, putting your cards on the table or whatever, you might expect some pushback or something like that, and you can't fold in that moment. You just have to be like, yeah, I've been in this place a million times. It's your reaction to what they say to your question, which is the real problem. If you just go, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that, then that's a test by the other person. And I felt like on sales, it's like they didn't know that this game was going on, by the way. I think in dating they do. In sales, they don't. And I was just like, I need to figure out like how I'm feeling on these calls and why I react to certain things. So all the meditation, all the work I was doing, and bit by bit I was getting better. Actually, I say bit by bit, quite quickly I was getting better. At one point I had to control it because I was like, I got better at sales than I was at maybe following through with the delivery. And so there's a couple of times where it was like, okay, I need to learn to not sell so well. Like, I need to actually be aware that I have this imbalance of power in this conversation, and I could just sell this person stuff, and I'm like, no, this isn't good, this is not good, selfishly, by the way, not because I'm just a good guy. Yeah. And I was really fascinated by I think it was the financial outcome. And then what I started to notice is all the same skills that I've learned and developed, the intuition just started translating into my coaching, and I just think my coaching got so much better. And then sometimes I'd say things and I'd be like, I don't even know what the hell, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know. I used to have these conversations with Rally a lot, and I'm like, I don't even know where I knew how to say that. Like, and then people would be asking, like, Ali, how do you know what to say? And literally sometimes it would be just like, and she got a bit spiritual, clearly. It was like,
you're channeling.
It's coming from, I mean, we can really go into a...
I think that I'd love to share my experience with you on that, because it was a really profound experience I had. Because I remember, so when we spoke, I'd consumed so much of your content. We had the conversation. I just quit my job as a recruitment consultant and gone all in on my coaching, and it wasn't working. I was working as a bartender in Byron Bay. Just like, fuck it, I don't want to be a recruitment consultant. I'll get a part-time job. And I was sat in the living room of this hostel, and we had the conversation, and I remember so clearly, had the conversation, and you give me the price, it was like 4K, or I was like 4K, and I remember, and you just didn't say a word, and I was like, that was the longest 10 minutes of my whole life. And I was like, and I was just sitting here with you looking at me, looking at this piece of paper, with like thinking, how the fuck am I going to do that? And you just didn't say anything, and I was so uncomfortable. And you said, are you ready to put, like, again, like maybe it was that, put your cards on the table. Are you ready to stop fucking about and just fucking do what you said, do what you need to do? Something like that. You said one thing, and I was like, I'm in. And for so long after that, I had a lot of resistance around putting someone else into that situation.
The tension.
I had pressure. So I bought into this narrative in marketing. Oh, high pressure sales. I'm going to teach you how to have high pressure sales. And then after, like a couple of years later, I was like, that was not pressure. That was tension. I was like, oh my God. And I had to do the process. And I was like, wow, if it wasn't for Tim, I would never have gone into that container. I would never have learned about DeMartini. I would never have learned how to actually coach people. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be coaching. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing this. And I was like tears of gratitude for that experience. I was like, oh my God, I get it. I'm like, he held that tension so well that it allowed me to step in throughout so much discomfort. And that changed my life in so many ways. And I'm like, oh, wow. So then I kind of flipped the script on my own coaching of like, in my own calls, I'm like, tension is an invitation for transformation.
100%.
Right? No one's going to change unless they can sit in that tension. And I started taking money on the call. after I'd done that, I was like, I could take money on the call because it's like words don't mean anything, mate. Actions are what you need, and I'm going to give you a space, an opportunity between you and I to step into that by holding that tension because I have to be the one to hold that for you to step into that transformation.
Why do you
If
think
you're not
people
ready,
don't?
pardon.
Why do you think people don't or can't?
It's absolutely 100% because of their own stories, their own emotions, what it means about them, all of the rejection, the fear, the stories they have around money, all of that. It's all of their internal emotional baggage, 100%. Because in skill, the practice, like closers, where the whole high ticket closing industry, where it's not their offer. As a coach, where you are a solopreneur and you're coaching, your sales, you're bringing someone into your field, you're bringing someone into your nervous system and to your own transformation, and you're serving someone that's deeply aligned to your core purpose and your pain, which is a lot of the work that we do with coaches. It's a very fine line, I think, and it's a very interesting game that those specific types of coaches play because I'm bringing someone into my field and my world, and I think that I think there's so many dimensions to that, but ultimately I think it's fear of rejection and just not being able to hold that emotional tension before, like, I'll fill the space because you don't have to.
I do like sales clearly, and like I like
You're
sales.
very good at it, mate. You're very, very good at it, mate.
But I went through this stage where, and like, I don't know if you've done. I'm sure you've I'm going to ask you about dating Russian people, Russian women as well at some point. But like, I'm sure you've done some work with your own personal relationships, and I think that there are massive correlations for sure. And one of the things that I did when I was working with Glenn is like he would just say do this thing, and sometimes there wasn't. One time he was like, on a call, you're just going to stop saying something. You're going to stare at the person for 10 seconds, and then you're just going to go, don't really know what to say, and then shut up. And I was like, I can't do that. And he's like, you're going to do it. And I was like, I didn't know why. And I was like, but, and he's like, just do it. What was really interesting when I did it, when I practiced it, which is what it was, what I realized is when I did that, like it was this pattern break, but then what would happen is the tension after would just create a situation where they had to delve into their mind to ask, to tell me something important. And that wasn't, I don't think, why Glenn said it. He wanted me to be able to feel tension and sort of disarm people. And what I noticed after that is I'd just sit there. And if I had to sit there for 30 seconds, by the way, it feels like an hour, they would say something like really profound. And I'd be like, wow. And then he'd give me these little things to do. Right, here's what you're going to do. And I'd just practice these things. And I just found it funny. I'd get off the call and I'd be like, shit. And then when I was obviously in a very happy relationship when I moved to, well, no, you might not know, but I was in a happy relationship when I moved to Malta. And then we split up quite quickly. And I was like, she decided to go back. And I was like, I'm going to stay in Malta. And I'd been in a relationship for 7 years. Like, dating apps didn't exist before that. Like, I was kind of not into that sort of, didn't even know it was a thing. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to be a bit social because I don't know anyone here. You know what? I'm going to go and start doing some dates. And I just realised, like, from day one, I was terrible. I was so bad at it. It was so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my God, there's this. One of the little games that I played with myself was I'm going to sit there with someone, obviously a girl, in a date, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to stare into not stare into each other's eyes because that sounds a bit like strange.
Yeah.
We're going to sit there in tension for a minute and not say anything. And I'm going to figure out how the hell I can do that. And I was like, right, I'm going to do it. And I just sit there. And by the way, hopefully this doesn't sound like I'm a weirdo. I'm not literally just like, but it's like, I did it for seconds, and then I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And then I'd stop. And then sometimes if I was a little bit drunk, I'd get to like 20 seconds. I was like, oh. And then one day I was just on a date with this girl from Eastern Europe, actually. And it was just a day date. And bit by bit, at first we met and I just sat down and I'd just sit there. Instead of saying something, I'd just say silent for like 10 seconds. So instead of saying anything at all, I wouldn't like grab the menu or anything or how's your day. I'd just stay silent for 10 seconds. And then I'd see how comfortable is the other person in that silence and that connection. Yeah. And some people are all, and then about half an hour in there, we just sat there and I was just staring at her and she was just looking at me. And she, after about a minute, she goes, "You're quite good at this, aren't you?" And I was just cracking up. We just had such a laugh. And I was like, I think that people can't, and sales are very intimate, obviously in a very different way. Sales is such a intimate situation that most people are not used to if they learn to sell with some depth, because you have to feel that tension. Like tension is, Phil used to say it, like most people want to puncture the tension bubble. And Phil learned a lot about dating before sales. I just did it the other way round.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating though, right? Because like I see it in the Brotherhood, because in the check-ins, so how the Brotherhood structured, we run check-ins, right? We do a breakout circle, so like 5-6 people max. Everyone's got 5 minutes, so we'll sit there in silence, everyone else in silence, being very present, phones away, with the guy. You've got 5 minutes. I'll time you. That feels like the fastest 5 minutes you'll ever have, or the longest, right? And I say to the guys, you're going to have the 5 minutes. Right? If you fill the space, great. If you don't fill the space, and it's space, right? Time is space. But some guys will, and I was like, usually what will happen, especially for the new guys, you'll say something, you'll stop, we'll sit there in silence, and then you'll say what you really need to say. What you really mean will come out once you've got the things that you thought you need to say, and then what will come out of you then is the real magic. It's the real emotional charge. It's the thing that you really have to bring out. Because you're no longer, you've got all this like mental chatter out, and now the thing that you really need is out. And there's so much magic in that. But it's the same as sales, right? Of like, and I think it's like, there's such a skill in holding space for people. And I think what you've just shared with me now is really insightful around how to hold that in the sales process. Because again, it's there's so much. It's like someone is going to fill that space, right? Someone's going to fill that, whether it's you or me. And quite often it's that the insecurities of the person that can't hold that space that will fill it first, right? But
Tell me about your experience dating. Russia is my favourite country, by the way, so you know. I went in 2018 for the World Cup, and I was meant to go for 2 days. Went with my sister, and then she's like, "I've got to go back," and I'm like, "I'm staying. This is so much fun."
Yeah.
I stayed for 3 weeks, and I went back twice more that year. And I really like the country. I really like the people. And when I'm like speaking to people, they're like, you know, they have these misconceptions and that. Like, tell me about relationship stuff and that. Like, you've obviously
I think
relationship, but that couldn't come when I say easily, I'm assuming you did a lot of your own work as well to be able to be in
100%, man. Like when I got to Bali, I was like, right, I'm ready for a relationship, and I went really into doing the work on relationships, like listening and consuming and doing the work and writing down who I wanted. And do you know what? The day that we met, I would say 3 years in the making. I'd moved to Bali. I'd made my first £10,000 cash collected month. And I just run a workshop called How to Turn Your Passion into Your Profession. And I was like, I fucking knew I was this man. I knew I could do it. And I was at my most radiant. Like, if I look at my energetic, like, peak, I was like, I fucking knew I was this man. And then that night she came in. I went out for a few drinks with my mate, and she was the first person I saw. And then we just hit it off, man. But I was in my most like powerful, radiant version of myself. And then we met. Our first date was actually doing a breath work with Brian Kelly, who's like one of the best. It was like beautiful meditation center over the cliff, and we done it together. Awesome. And my process was opening my heart, and hers was around alcohol. And then I was calling someone in who would go down the rabbit hole, who would hold my hand and jump down the rabbit hole with me. And she was already in the work, and she dragged me down. Like, she was going faster than I was going. And it's like we had 3 years of work, and then we met. And it's been the most beautiful thing I could ever ask for, man. Like, a lot of the most potent mirrors and tension and challenge, and within the scope of the cultural differences and the way that the role of a man and a woman in the Eastern European versus the British there's a massive contrast.
What's the difference?
Well, I think it's a much more traditional relationship, right? Of like, men provide. That's just the way it is, right? And if it was very clear from day one. There was no games. It was like, this is what I need. This is what I expect. I want you to be that person. Do you want to be that? And I was like, yeah, I do, because I love you.
You feel pressure.
Absolutely, 100%. But, and like, that's been the clash of this, like the masculine wound of not being good enough, and then this like feminine kind of wound of being too much, and it is this constant bang, 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 like all of it throughout the conflicts that we've had of me trying everything I can, me feeling like the way that she was expressing her needs was making me quote unquote feel not good enough, and then it was like this constant clash of these two, masculine and feminine. But ultimately it's allowed me to become who I become, because my drive, my motivation, my conviction is because I have someone that I love, that I want to create a family for. And a beautiful thing that I learned was, and it's a reflection from a coach, I made a joke once. He said, what do you want? I was like, well, my dream life looks quite expensive, mate. I've got quite an expensive missus. He was like, stop. You called her in as the mirror for you to express your desires. I was like, wow. So I was like, I was bypassing my own desire to live this massive luxury, ambitious life, and then bypassing it through her. Like, she allowed me to express that in the world versus being, you know, she's just my mirror. I fucking want that. I want that, and I want that for us, and I'm going to create that, and I'm going to be on a mission to do that. And it was like taking my power back of, she allowed me to embody and express the life that I've always wanted. Now it's quote unquote acceptable in my relationship, whereas before, around the whole dynamics of Western culture around relationships and equal 50-50 and splitting the bill and shit, and I'm like, I feel fucking powerful as fuck, and the only person's opinion I care about is my future wife's. And my masculinity and my masculine energy has been such a conscious conversation, so like daily conversation within my relationship. But that's been my motivation and drive. And then the brotherhood is how I show up in the world based on how the work that I've done in my intimate relationship. And that is the expression of all the work I've done here. But then the work has been here. The work has been in the tension of conflict. How can I sit in this? How can I show up as the man I want to be and proud of, even when every cell of my body is screaming at me and my inner child's going mental and all I want to do is fucking leave or punch a fucking door? How do I actually hold these emotions and hold this relationship and my role in this relationship to be proud of myself and to have the love that I have? And it's inspired me, it's driven me, it's created so much commitment to doing the work, because it's my I feel very blessed to have the relationship I've got, and but it's a responsibility of doing the work, right? It's like we're both very responsible of our own work. We'll take responsibility, we'll apologize, we need to apologize, we'll go and do our work and invest into our coaches and go into our processes and allow each other to have space to do their work, to come back to a place of love. So yeah, I'm very blessed. I feel like it's a soul connection in so many ways, and has not been easy, but it's been ultimately for the best of my own growth and our growth as a unit. So I highly recommend, if any single guys are out there, just entertain the idea of it, because they will force you to become a man. Whether you want to be that type of man or not is your decision.
I find this stuff interesting, listening to your story and that, and I think that, why do you think men, especially Western men, might find those statements quite unusual? Or like, I don't know if in the, and to be honest, I'm as much interested in how men maybe struggle with relationship situations at the beginning. And like, I think when you're faced with that sort of like polarity, I guess, that sort of statement, it's like, that's just not acceptable in England. You wouldn't necessarily hear that often. And I think that men struggle with that. It's not even honesty. It's not even about whether Eastern Europeans are more honest. They are, by the way, but obviously you know that. Yeah. But it's like, it's just a different way of looking at the world. And I think it does bring up a lot of wounds in a lot of men and boys, because they've been told that you shouldn't act in a certain way. By the way, this is just my opinion. I'd like someone to challenge all of this. Like, you shouldn't act in a certain way, but then they act in the way that we're told to, and then it's like, hang on a minute, no one seems to want to go on a date with me ever again, and like I just seem to get rejected. And then it's like, well, maybe actually what you've been told. I found it really difficult. I found it really difficult when I was starting to go on like dates, because I was like, I'm actually, I read a lot about it, and I learned like how to be, whatever you want to call it, interactive, charismatic.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need to do? And I was like, okay, this is. And when I started, when I say I tried it, when I was like, I know what I need to improve on, I found it really difficult, like really difficult to like show up as a man. And it was just like, and there was part of me that was like, you said it earlier. I think it's like there was part of me that was just like this shame of like me and my masculinity, and in that situation. What's your thoughts on that?
So I was exactly the same, mate. And I think the reason why I have such a drive for it was because it was a very deep pain for me in a lot of ways. Because like when I was, again, I look back around the whole thing around the football, right? If you look back at the football, the rejection, I had a crippling fear of rejection in so many areas of life, dating being one of them, right? As a young man. And it was like, I had shame. I had like insecurities around it because I was still I was still out and about and like a charismatic guy. But when it comes to dating, I was so insecure in so many ways, and it just got to the point where I was attracting the wrong people, and just like obviously within personal development, I'm like, I know I can solve this. I've just never committed the time to solving it. It's never been a problem. I was like, I'm focused on business for 3 years. I can't entertain that idea. And then I got to Bali. I was like, oh, I can start doing this work now because I've got space. Cool, I can do the work. All right, cool. How do I do the work? I just consume everything I can about it. And I do the work. I read the books. I watch YouTubes. I just learn from the people that have mastered it. And then in like 6 to 8 weeks, she was there. She was here. And all of the whole thing was not about going and chasing women. It was about become the fucking man. Become the type of man who the type of woman that you want to be with will look at you and think, that's the type of man I want to be with. Who is that? What does he do? Is he in shape? Is he ambitious? Is he on a mission? How does he treat women? Like, it's all a reflection of who we are. And then if we want to have this beautiful, loving relationship with this beautiful woman, you have to be the type of guy to do that. But you have to understand relational dynamics, right? It's like a thing called hypergamy. And it's like women are attracted to men who they perceive as higher up that can give them the life that they want. And every woman that you meet is going to make a story in their mind. Is this man going to be able to create the life I want to live?
Do you think that kind of idea is shamed, by the way?
I think, yes. I think it's shamed. I think it's a biological thing. I think it's a primal biological thing that is not accepted in Western culture. And I believe that women are shamed for this whole too much, right? It's the wound of like men are like not enough, women are too much, right? So then when women or the feminine feel like I can't express my desires because it'll be too much for someone, right? And I'll feel guilty or I won't be able to get that. Whereas I think because of in my relationship, she'd done a lot of work to be able to say, this is what I want. And I have the self-worth to say that I'm not going to settle for anything less than that. And there was the match on that level of self-worth of like what I believe I want and what I deserve and what I believe the woman that I love deserves. And if I am the one to provide that for her, I have to level up. I have to think bigger. I have to create bigger. I have to take bigger risks because that requires this thing. And I think that, again, there's so many components to it, right? There's like, but on an energetic level, it's like these two things. But yeah, I think from a Western perspective, I think that the whole feminine movement has not been helpful to serve this. I think that men are a lot of people, if you think about, well, beyond men, of like victim consciousness, blaming the world and not taking ownership and responsibility for where they're at in life, not doing the work, not being conscious of their own stuff. I think it beautifully ties into all the concepts that we've spoken about today that can be applied to that whole world of dating and relationships. Because it's intimate relationship the same as a business partnership, but they're still relationships, right? They're still our mirror of what we have not worked on or an invitation to step into greater levels of awareness, greater levels of depth and connection. If we have the awareness, compassion, and courage to be able to sit with our own stuff, do the work, and then come back into that space with grounded awareness. And I think it's just I think our women are our most beautiful mirrors and our consistent invitation to grow and become our potential. I think it's very hard for a man to reach his full potential in all ways without the feminine and a woman that he would like to devote himself to build for that family unit. I think that's a very different paradigm for a man and an opportunity to express and grow in what it means to be a man, the responsibilities of what it means to be a man, to take care of and provide for and take that role within a family unit. And I think that's a very primal, biological, philosophical, spiritual, all of the scripture and text suggest that that's the role. It's only been very recently.
This conversation with people that you grew up with, or like even some family, maybe not direct family, like how would they react, do you think?
Very triggered, mate. Very triggering conversation because like, but. It's like you're speaking from a victim. You're speaking blaming. You're blaming the government. You're blaming the fucking world. You're blaming other than you have not done the work. Right? You have not done the work you need to do. But that's okay because you can decide right now to commit to the work. Right? It's not about what you have done. It's around taking radical responsibility and ownership right now for who you are in this present moment and deciding to move from now onwards as someone that will be able to get what you want. You have to be the one to choose that, which goes back to that whole thing I said around, I believe that we're all here to live our lessons. And if that is your lesson, great. If that's not your lesson, you stay in that frequency, in that position of being a victim and blaming everything, and so be it. I have compassion for you, but I'm not going to waste my energy trying to convince you of my way of looking at things. I think that's a big thing about coaching, right? I'm not trying to pull people out the gutter. I'm trying to lead the people that are ready to be led. I'm not trying to convince you to look at my worldview. I'm trying to speak to the people that already adopt that worldview, but on some level can't fully step into that because of their fears, worries, doubts, and insecurities.
I think that's one of the reasons why people get so much value from moving to places like Bali, is that they will find people that think in a similar way to them. And I think that when you're in, you know, it's not all of England, like, and I'm not bagging on England, of course, like I love the country, but maybe it's also like old relationships. Like I probably wouldn't necessarily voice my opinions around relationships. Actually, that's not true. I would, but it would not be. I grew up in like proper. Where did you grow up?
In Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, fucking hell, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Cambridge, and Cambridge and Brighton are similar-ish. You're probably a little bit further down the down the rabbit hole of not the way I would necessarily think. And my views would just be like really socially unacceptable. Like, and if I actually said what I would think, which I would do because I'm not afraid of it, and I'm like, this is what I think, they would just be like most of my friends. And I still kind of have a relationship with people that I went to school with. Like like a lot of them still hang out with each other, like, and they're bringing up kids together, like their kids, and
totally.
like,
Still the same group chat.
I really like that part of it. Like,
yeah.
But my opinion on things like relationships is very, very different to theirs. Very different.
And that's the thing, mate. It's like ignorance is bliss, right? There's a level of like, oh, great. If you don't have that ambition or that frustration or that part within you that's like deeply frustrated that you're not living the life you want, and you are genuinely okay and happy because the options that you believe are available to you, like you're doing the best of the options available, great. Love that for you, mate. Because I have this delusional level of self-belief and ambition, my options that I believe available to me are so vastly different to you. My values are so different that I have to play a different game. And like, it's just like, there's no comparison. And I think you have to, I go through that of like going through this whole thing of like believing I was better than people and this spiritual ego, and then coming back down to like, hang on a second, we're all the fucking same. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. That's okay.
Still an idiot as well at the same time.
Yeah, still flawed, still not perfect, still rough around the edges, still make mistakes, all that shit, right? But I think I've got a very unique perspective on the lives of men, right? I've had hundreds of men pour their heart out to me.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I think like the nature of the brotherhood, where it meets a lot of guys that are stepping into that space. We've had no Instagram, mate. There's 800 people in my community. Hundreds of men around the world from all walks of life have stepped into my circle. And I've led them, I've held space for them, and I've inspired them. But I've had them share what's on their heart. I've had professional MMA fighters break down in tears in front of me. I've had men pour their hearts out around seemingly insignificant things, but it's so emotionally charged for them that it's just really brought my perception of men and money and problems into a very equal playing field of like, we all have the same fucking problems, mate. I'm just experiencing a different timeline of you. And we all have to go through the same trials and tribulations to become who we need to become. But ultimately, we're wired in the same way. And I think we're very simple beings. Most men just want to have a beautiful relationship with a woman they're attracted to, that they want to provide for, that they want to become that man for. And they want to ignore these social standards and feel that innate drive to provide and become and be that pillar in that relationship. I believe that we want something meaningful to work on, that gets us out of bed, that gives us vision, that gives us clarity, that gives us motivation. And I believe we just want to have meaningful relationships around us that are actually connected at shared values, that connected at shared passions and values, that we can engage in and in conversation with each other and have that human connection. We are very simple, but I think that that's not going to come where you're born, because you're just put in that. And we can often, and this is why the values process is so important, right? If you don't know your values, how do you know who you resonate with? And I think that is just beautiful awareness. What's your values? What's your ambitions? Where are you going? What are you trying to achieve in life? And what are your passions? And then you have relationships that fit those needs. Every relationship has to fit them all.
Have you ever read Zach Rhodes' stuff?
No.
Like
Zach Rhodes.
Zach, I think it's ZAC Rhodes, as in like, it's not exactly the same spelling, but like Rhodes as in Rhodes scholar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Ali, by the way, he's also a marketer, right? And so he also just goes on the internet and just triggers the fuck out of whoever gets triggered by what he says. And he's not doing it by mistake, put it that way. So I'm surprised he's not been banned off every platform at some points. And so he does kind of use some hyperbolic language, but his diagnostics of the problem is incredibly good. And I remember Ali started reading his book, and I was like, and I was interested in it. I read it, and it was like, shit me, this is going to trigger the fuck out of people. Anyone who reads that. Not anyone, but and then I was like, actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of and try and read a lot of books like this. I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna sort of ignore the bits that I know that are also written by a marketer just for show, put it that way. But actually, what I found really interesting in his stuff was that when he actually talks about how men and women should communicate with each other, and he talked about it, and I was like, right, I'm gonna practice some of this. I'm going to suggest that we do this. And obviously we were very aligned when, back in the day, and it was like, we're going to work on this style of communication. And he said something in there, like, if you're, let's say nagging, by the way, this is contextual. So if you feel like you're getting nagged, well, okay, so first of all, we need to step back and say, well, like, why do most men get nagged? Or why do some of them? Or a good percentage of them? Well, it's like, pick your fucking socks up. It's like, pick your socks up. Like, and I used to say this to people on our calls, and I don't know if they quite got what I was saying sometimes. It's like, it's never the socks. It's never the socks. The socks are never the problem. Like, a woman will pick your socks up all day long if there's everything else is in line. Like, they don't. Yeah. By the way, if I say they don't mind and someone doesn't agree with me, like, okay, there you go. And
it's just unconscious resentment that bleeds through.
Like 100%, right? and then he talks about like that if a woman makes a man, it's not even makes a man feel like they're being nagged, but communicates in a certain way, which when I was doing the work, like I was really aware of how these interactions and the way things were said and how they actually made me like the felt sense that I had. And then I'd sit there and I'd be like, I was really curious about this. And I recognised that when I'm getting what I perceive to be like told what to do or nagged. Like just and it's hard to explain. It was just like I could just feel the mother wound. It was just like it was just like, oh, like whatever that was. And what did I do in those moments? Without, obviously I was conscious of it. I was like, nah, fuck off, leave me alone. Like just like literally like this. It's hard to explain, but it's like this childlike reaction. And then Zach Rose says what women should do is communicate without judgment, without expectation, and from feelings. And so when this happens, I feel. So when this happens, I feel. And his reasoning for that is when you present a man with a problem from a place of non-expectation and vulnerability, you watch him go and fix that fucking problem.
Yeah.
Like you watch him. Whereas if you approach a man and say, nag, which by the way, it isn't, and often, even if it is, it's probably deserved in some ways. You watch a man like just, and they might not know this. It's just like, fuck off, leave me alone. Like,
it's like deflect, defend, distract. It's like just
all of this. And I remember like, and we were doing this work, like we were working on it. It's like, and it's obviously a little bit of sort of the feminine sort of flirtatiousness. And it's like, when this happens, I feel. And I remember just like this feeling of like, right, I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like, that's all I... And we did this work, and it was like, I just found this way of communicating unbelievably right.
Yeah.
Just like, this was... And I felt like he talks about in the book, he's like, men want to have respect.
Yeah.
Like they need to. So part of his communication is always make sure that a man feels respected. And there's still a part of my head which is like, well, why do you need respect? What's the matter with you? Like almost like there's a real judgment on it. I was like, no, that should be okay. That's what I want. I want respect. Why would I not want respect from my partner? Because you know what, it makes you feel good. And then one day we were having this conversation. It's hard work, by the way. And something was said, and I was like, no. This is how we're going to do it. And the conversation was, when you raise your voice, it makes me feel... And by the way, in my dynamic, I know exactly why one octave of my voice going up would make the person that was in the situation feel a certain way. Because I know they had a lot of trauma, from male men. A man. And it's like, no, here's what we're going to do. When I hear a male's voice raised, I feel, because it was all about taking responsibility for your own shit, like from the female's perspective. 100%, and I was like, and obviously my role in that situation is to lead this. And there was like some fight back and that, and then later on when everything calmed down, it was like, and you know, the person came to me and said, "Yeah, you're right, that's correct. It's not your voice, it's a voice of any man, and especially a man that I am in an intimate personal relationship with." 100%. I just find his work really, really powerful. Just made so much sense to me. And I was like, this is mental.
Well,
why would we not?
There's something you picked up on there, which is really important when you said it's my job to lead this, right? Of like, that's the expression of leadership that most men don't have any awareness around, of like, in those situations, leadership of leading that container in a safe environment and not expecting someone else to lead. Like, that's a really important part of that whole process, right? Which you expressed then, which is so unaware for so many men. Like, what do you mean leading in that space around a conversation? But it's like the male's role, the masculine role, to hold that and lead that into resolution, not into just fucking blowing up, but like, how do we channel that into resolution? And we're going through friction, but how do we resolve this is also part of the responsibility, right, of the masculine, in my opinion. Which I think is beautifully expressed there.
We still have to double down on this when we're having this conversation. Go, oh, in my opinion, like it doesn't. It's almost like a fear that like people are going to be like, well, no, there's something like, I think it's like, oh,
yeah. Or can't say that. Just let me just
have to like just give a little bit of a caveat. The reason I was interested is because I think that just generally my time when I spent in other places in the world, this is just a given. It's just not even a consideration. Like, yeah, of course,
culture, man, isn't it?
There's
like, that is culture, isn't it? That's the cultural differences. And I think the beautiful thing around that is like cultures are different, right? But they're so deeply rooted in what our paradigm of life should be, right? That's where the shoulds come in of like, oh, England is people from England, they see the world in this way. And when we meet someone that doesn't see the world through our own lens, it's like, what do you mean? Right? So there's like a level of like how deep that conviction of what you believe reality needs to be, or the paradigm that you live in, is like sometimes they can't be broken, right? Of like how fixed is that paradigm of what a relationship is between a man and a woman. I think a lot of those paradigms are so fixed that it would be too psychologically breaking to enter into a relationship where that is different in so many ways. And I think that's kind of how they from different cultures, how they fit. Because obviously we're both very international thinkers. We've spent a lot of time outside of our own country, so we've been exposed to many different worldviews and many different people. So we're much more open-minded than we are. And that's how we can kind of like create our own culture, like within our relationship. Like this is what we believe about the world. This is our reality. This is the reality we choose to live in, not confined by the cultures we came from, but we've created our own family culture, right? And that's through the lessons and teachers that we've had and values that we've created and experience we've had together, right? For us to create that, right? So it's, yeah.
Has it been hard work, your relationship then?
Oh, the hardest thing I've ever done, mate.
Yeah.
Hardest thing I've ever done, but the most rewarding, right? I think it's like it all comes back to family anyway. Do you mean like why do you want to build a business? Because I want to be able to provide for our family. Do you mean why do you want to be fit and healthy? I want to be proud of myself. Who for? My missus, my fucking wife, my missus. Like outside of that, it's just ego and like who you trying to impress? Your mates at the pub, the kids at school, your mum and dad, like the people that I love the most, the people that I value the most. And then for me, my value in family is that's in my intimate relationship. Right? That's the person's opinion I care about most. I know apart from myself as a priority. Yes, I want the people that I love to love me back and all that shit, but it's I think a lot of people betray themselves and abandon themselves. And like self-abandonment was a big thing that came up for me over the last few months around how I'd abandon myself in certain environments.
Go on, what does that mean?
Well, just putting other people's needs above my own. Dying on the sword. I'm someone of purpose. I'm an impact. I'll struggle. I'll take pride in the struggle. Well, it's like, mate, like put your own priorities first.
What's
Look after
the other
yourself.
side of that? What's through that then?
Pardon?
What's through that? Like the other side of that? What's the sort of the other side of the
I think
coin?
the antithesis of that is the fear of being seen as narcissistic, the fear of being rejected for being greedy, or someone that's like power hungry. It's all shadow, right? Of like scared of your own shadow. And it's like, well, you can integrate that part of you where there may be parts of me that are narcissistic. Maybe yes. All right, cool. There is parts of me that want to be powerful. Yes. But not being able to, and then not being a people pleaser and being like, no, I'm going to put my own needs first and my needs first and boundaries. And it's like, if someone can't accept that boundary, then they're not the right person for you anyway.
I was watching Rogan and he was talking about, it's interesting because they were talking about, Conor McGregor actually. And like,
Oh, yeah.
his downfall, but like not being like at some point like everyone seemed to like him, and then just obviously there's stuff that he did or didn't do, and then they started talking about like this other person, and the name hadn't been mentioned, and as soon as they started the sentence, I was like, I know who they mean, and it's I can't even pronounce the name. Partly because I can't pronounce the name, but also I'm not like the biggest MMA fan. But it's a guy from Dagestan that was undefeated.
Oh, yeah.
McGregor. And it begins with N, and I'm not even going to try and say it. And there was a description of him, even before they said the name, and he's like, he has this mixture, this is how they started, it's like, he has this mixture of humbleness and like arrogance. And they're not afraid of the arrogance part. And then I was like, oh, and as soon as they said it, I was like, I know who they mean. And if you follow any MMA, and it's like,
I know exactly who you mean, but it's the name has left me.
He's the wrestler from Dagestan who just beat everyone. And it's like, he's got this presence about him where he is like, got this arrogance, like he doesn't give a fuck. He's the best. And they were talking about like, he's got this humbleness, which he's Muslim. So they say, inshallah, which I think means like something to praise to God or whatever.
Glory to God, right? Or something like that.
And it's just like, for me, that was like, okay, it's like, he's got this arrogance about how good he is, and it's grounded arrogance, but it's like, it's almost putting that outside himself as well as to why I am that. like why I am that
Yes.
great. And it's like I've got other bigger forces to thank for it. And I just loved that way of thinking about being in the world. Like, I guess it's the opposite to that inferiority, superiority complex that I think a lot of people have, which is
Yeah.
like they've got a big ego, but it's just built on a sandal of, a castle of sand. I just loved that way of thinking about it.
I think it's like the evolution of the ego in some ways as well, right? Of like we like on some level we believe that we are not in control, and then we believe that we are in control totally, and then we transcend of like, oh, actually, I'm not actually that much in control. And then like sometimes something's working through me, and I'm a tool of this experience, and things are working through me. And yes, I can channel and use my gifts and whatever. But I think that's like surrendering your own control to something of a higher power, right? Because there's like the control of the ego and the certainty that we need because we need to feel safe in this chaotic world is such, again, it's a very hard thing to transcend. Even on the scale of consciousness, like pride, right? Pride is one of it's the bridge between neutrality, right? That's when you go out of power and versus like at force versus power, right? It's that point. And I think most guys, it's like can stay there for so long. I think I spent a long time in that, like, and I couldn't transcend pride. And I think I had to collapse and collapse and collapse and things break for me to be like, okay, and then rebuild from a different place. And I think just men are quite proud of. Why do you want respect? Right? Because I'm a proud man.
Are
Right?
you
Because I
proud
want
of
other
what you
people.
feel?
Absolutely, 100%. I don't think it's not a case of pride in itself. I think there's two ways of looking at pride. I think I'm proud of what I've done. Absolutely, I'm not going to not. I'm not going to take that away from myself. 100%. Absolutely, but I think pride can be a dangerous thing. Because even in G.D. Martini's work, right, when we're in a state of pride, I've done this, I've done that. The shadow of that is narcissism, of like wanting to take because I've given so much and now there's an imbalance. I've done this, I've done that. I'm so good at. I've shown up for you. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. You're so good. I'm so good. I've done all these good things. And the antithesis of that, when it's like swings back, is like I want to take now. I feel like haven't got what I deserve, and then we can swing into narcissism, which is okay. Do you know what I mean? It's not like good or bad. It's just is what it is. But I think that it's just an interesting balance that we have. There's so many different ways you could look at it, right? It's such a
I
fascinating
think
conversation, mate.
Swan talks about like Lucifer consciousness and God consciousness. I was not even trying to explain it because I don't really understand it I do, but I don't sometimes. Like I kind of go between the sort of my old way of being, which is, yeah, that don't make sense. It's not science. Like I'm not interested. Like tell me like the science. And then
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I've been forced to kind of, I'll tell you a story of interesting. Do you know what Kundalini awakening is, right?
yeah. My fiance helps people with that. Yeah.
When one day, a long time ago, someone told me that God had told them that I was going to have what is called a Kundalini awakening. And I was just like,
What the
and I
fuck are
was,
you talking about?
like, yeah, I was halfway. What are you talking about? But there's a little bit of me that seems to be a bit more accepting to things. And I was like, okay. And then I obviously Googled what's a Kundalini awakening and then saw the only videos that came up that actually showed something was some dude, some Indian dude in, I don't know, somewhere in India, just looking a bit like something was he's having a fit
Shake.
or something.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
and then the week after, I went out and I got quite drunk, and it wasn't my proudest moment, and it was to do with someone, and it just wasn't a good evening, put it that way. And I woke up in the morning, you know, when you're like real drunk, but like vulnerable and like
Anxiety.
you just want to like curl up in a ball, and then you got all this, oh, what happened? And I was
Yeah.
in that space a bit, and then I was like, oh, and then I just found this what was like a meditation, but also hypnosis, and it was about like shame and trauma, and I don't know quite why I did it, but I just was in that, and I put it on. It's about 20 minutes, and I just had this release, which was just like nothing like I've ever felt before.
Wow.
And then I was like, I don't know, and I was half cut still, sort of, and then I was like, I'm gonna Google Kundalini and see what this is. And I found a Kundalini meditation, which was about 40 minutes long. And the only way I can describe it is, as soon as the chanting started, I was like, what? No, I wasn't like that because it was happening.
Yeah.
And it was just the weirdest shit happened to me for the next 40 minutes that I couldn't even really explain. I wish there had been a video in the corner, because it was like, it started
Shaking,
it
shaking.
started like like in my gut maybe. Then
Yeah.
when I say it, like if I'm trying to explain it, like it, I'm sure people that are more spiritually aware would know what it is, chi or whatever. And
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
went
Life
down,
force coming through you, right?
and it went down, and it was like my hips opened in a way that they've never been in that. I've spent like 15 years trying to mobilize, and literally in like 2 minutes there was more
Oh no, you
mobilization
frozen, mate.
and then it all went up, and then I could, like, this thing came out of my, when I say
Right.
thing, like at one point I was like excruciatingly forward, and then just drove back, and my mouth opened wider than it's ever opened, and just this, whatever it was, came out. And then the last thing was just like this, I don't know, it was like I was taller than I've ever been, and they're just like, it's the weirdest shit happened. And since then, I'm like, I think I'm just going to be a bit more open to some of this. Like, I'm not going to keep fighting to have my old identity win of everything needs to be explained by science. Sometimes I'm like, there must be an explanation for what happened, but it was the weirdest
Mate,
shit.
I feel you, man. I think again, like it's exposure, right? Of like when you're exposed to certain ideas, you can't unsee them and you can't unfeel them, and I think they shape your reality and paradigm. Have you ever read Reality Transerving? Have you read that book? That's a really good book. It's a big, again, it's a big book. I haven't read it all, but it's a massive book on. It's called Reality Transerving. It's like one of Iman Gadzhi's like most recommended books. It's around reality and like what reality actually is. And it's just like we all basically live in our own reality, right? Whatever our reality is our own through our own eyes, and mine is different to yours, and we all get to create our own thing. But it's when you're exposed to them. I had my first one when I done ayahuasca. I done an 11-day ayahuasca retreat in Peru, and I felt like I've been blasted through this like trying like this. I just got blasted into this completely different paradigm of the universe in so many ways. Like that was a very
Was
profound
that while you
five
were
day.
doing it or after?
It was while I was doing it. While I was doing it on the second or third day, we done 11 days, 5 evenings, from like 6 till 6 a.m. And we
Wow.
drank 6 times. It was when my business partner kicked me out of the business. We had this message from my missus teacher, and they were like, "We're going to Peru. Do you want to come?" And I'd said no, no, no. I was like, "I haven't got any money." I was like, "Fuck it," and I just went bang. I just picked up my phone. I'd done like 10. I just blasted everyone in my inbox, and got 5 people to pay me $2,000 for a 6-month beta case study offer. And I had 10 grand in about 2 days. And I was like, "That's sweet." And I can only book a one-way flight because I could only afford a one-way flight for the two of us. So I booked a one-way flight, packed all our bags, left Bali, one-way flight through Madrid to Peru, 30 hours, done an 11-day retreat, and just blasted me into a different paradigm. And then I came out the other side with no money, trying to build my business, and it was the most
Would you do it
discombobulating,
again?
stressful. Pardon?
Would you do it again?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. I think you need the call. If you're called to it, I'd definitely say it will present itself with the right opportunity when you're ready. But I know it's funny because I'd lost my voice. The reason why I went, I'd lost my voice, and what I meant by that was that I was with a business partner, and everything I said was so deeply entangled with somebody else, and like my content was like my social media went like that. Didn't grow for a year. I was
Yeah,
not.
I think this is the time when I was
Yeah,
talking about.
and
Like,
I was like,
I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, what? Just didn't feel right.
I was who I thought I needed to be in this relationship to be successful. And after that, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my voice, and I knew I was being inauthentic. So I went there to find my voice. And now the thing that I get quoted is like, "Wow, you're so authentic." I'm like, "Yeah, I was fucking flew across the other side of the world, done 10 grand, I spent 5 days with ayahuasca because I knew I needed to figure it out." So, but I'll try and help you do it without doing that. But I said like, "What is my purpose? What is my thing?" And it hit me like that, and it was expression. your highest form of expression, your highest form of freedom is expression, Ryan. And I was like, I wasn't expecting that. And that was like the big insight. There was tons of insights, obviously, of 5 days.
Yeah.
But that's why my philosophy around life and business is that, like, everything we do in business and entrepreneurship is your expression of purpose. It's your expression as a soul. It's like what brotherhood and business is, my expression of my life. It's my passions and purpose and values in an expression of my genius and all of these things. And my philosophy on business is that whatever we serve people with is our highest expression of purpose, as we currently are. It might not always be that case, but we have to be willing to follow that and have the courage to pursue what you're being pulled into. And yeah, it's a lot of my philosophy of life and the way I see the world and see myself is based on that experience.
Yeah, do you know what you said, courage? I think like that's like huge. It's hard to explain, but like I don't think I'm going to do ayahuasca. Like
We'll see one day maybe.
I took a lot of LSD when I was young, a lot, and when I was very young, and
Love it then.
no, I had some really bad experiences, and the last one was really bad. And then I stopped doing anything from 19, and then I didn't touch anything at all.
Yeah.
Until somehow I went for a stage of, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I was like, I'm going to do some MDMA. And literally the thought of, if you'd asked me 15 years ago and said, in 15 years, you're going to do MDMA, it would be like panic. Like it couldn't be anywhere near anything. And then I don't know what it was, just over a bit, I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I did it, and it was really interesting and healing. But then it's like, I don't know. I'd like to do it, but I actually don't think I would because of the experiences I had in the past. And I think, and I don't know how it works, but one of the things I've said is like the people who do those sort of things from the right place will say, if you've had previous bad experiences with psychedelics, it might not be the best thing. I don't know because I had some really especially the last one.
Yeah.
But I just think doing stuff like that takes such a lot of courage. And even when I was doing that first meditation, the only way I can explain it is like you walk down these stairs, and that's obviously the sort of hypnosis meditation, and it's just this feeling of like no, and then it's just like just an opening, just an acceptance, or just like it was like no, and then it was just like I know it's hard to explain, but the courage it took to be in that moment to do it, although I was all fucked up. And I was like, that for me was, I think, what people can sometimes get from doing ayahuasca as well. Like 100%. The courage to be able to go and do something like that.
For me, like surrendering to the experience and surrendering to trust has been a passive part of it. Around like, I trust I'm going to get what I need on the other side of it. And like, I haven't been scared of the experience before because I've always felt like I'll trust whatever's showing up in the experience and not get trapped in it. Because some people get trapped in it, right? And then they resist it. And it's the surrendering of like, okay, like this is going to unfold however it unfolds. I can either allow it to unfold with trust, or I can allow it to unfold with fear, right? And resistance. And it's like, they're very two different experiences.
Maybe that's the thing that I need to do to get over the trauma that happened to me when I was like 15.
Yeah, well again, like courage can't exist. Courage and fear can't coexist without each other, right? Or like courage can't exist without fear being present. However, the version of, and this is what I say to the guys, I'm like, is the version of you who you're aspiring to be the most courageous version of you? Yes or no? Yes. All right, cool. What are you scared of then? Go do that.
I mean, if it's not rhetorical, I'm like, this is going to turn me like loopy. Like that's literally why I'm like, oh shit. I don't know. I did.
But that's the expression of lack of self-trust though, right? On some part of me doesn't trust that experience again, which is a great opportunity to be like, cool. Let me prove that part of me wrong. Let me develop deeper levels of trust again.
Maybe. Ryan, tell me, last thing, what are you excited about? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about putting a summit on at the end of the year. My vision now, we're going to put a men's summit on in Bali, and I'm making the commitment and speaking it out loud to commit to that and putting a men's summit on in Bali and getting incredibly powerful, conscious men who value freedom, sovereignty, connection in the same room to bring together important topics that we need to speak to as men. But guys that will want to connect And I'm excited about bringing those men into the same room. And one of the things that I've realized is that my job is just to bring people together and let the magic unfold when these men are in the same room. And that is the most inspiring, exciting thing that I'm working on right now.
How big's the room? How many men are we talking?
2,000 men.
Wow.
That's the vision. That's the plan. And it will happen, whether it's this time or next time, it will happen. And and this is about the genius stuff as well. Like I've had to develop that of like, oh, that is the scariest thing for me. And I've still got resistance doing the investment deck and shit. So I'm still very much against my edge with that. But I know it's what I'm meant to do. I can see it in my own eyes. And that's the most inspiring thing for me, to bring men like us, like this is such a sick conversation, mate, isn't it? Like we can fucking spend hours like this. But this is what I've got with the boys here. I've got this in my life. I have this in my life because I built it through the blood, sweat and tears of what I've created. And I know that this is what the world needs, to have more men like us in conversation that collaborate, that have that trust, that we can create a win-win. We can build relationships. We can do partnerships and transcend all of these old wounds and mistakes that we've made and build amazing, beautiful connections with brothers and serve at the highest level in the place that we're meant to serve at, what our gifts are, what our highest expression of purpose is in the world. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, mate. And that's when I'm on a fucking mission. So I appreciate you, though, man. You've had such an important role in my journey, and I want you to know that. I really want you to know that, because it's been a deeply profound experience of the lessons you taught me and your role in my journey, man. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. As I said, like at the beginning, like I've loved. Sometimes there's people that, obviously there's been a lot of clients, and you'll be the same with your clients. Like you see some people from afar and it's like, I just like in awe of what people are doing. Some of the guys that were doing, and I think it's also when you see like the ups and downs as well, like when you see that there's been struggles and then people come through that, and seeing what you're doing is unreal. Like I'm really supportive of it. So, yeah, awesome work.
See you in Bali then.
You might get me there. You never know. You never know. Like, I suppose if I'm in Vietnam, I've got no excuse, right?
Yeah, that's it.
All
right, man. Thank you so much.
How
Appreciate
can people find out about what you do?
Instagram,
Give me
_Ryan Harrington.
in the show notes and that.
Yeah, and then we've got Brotherhood and Business, which is our main Instagram page, which is building now.
Okay, so is that available, or is there?
Yeah, that's available now. And essentially, that's just for the lone wolves. Like if you're ready to leave the lone wolf identity behind, you're like, fuck, I don't want to do it alone anymore. I want to build around other guys. The Brotherhood and Business Club is the community that we're building for men like us to just have these conversations wherever you are in the world, to connect. Because like we say, right, like there's so much fruitfulness in these conversations that have nothing to do with business, but have everything to do with business and how you're showing up in the world at the same time.
All right, man. All right. Good talk, all right.
Big love, bro. Take it easy, man.